Good evening. My name is Haydn Reiss, and I want to welcome you to Rafael at Home. Since the theater is closed, the Smith Rafael Film Center, they are bringing the films to you on the streaming internet. And tonight we have the chance to to talk with Christopher Felver, the director. I want to tell you that we're going to talk with Chris for about 20 minutes, and then you can post some questions and we'll try to get to those. At the bottom of your screen to the right is a tab, Q&A, and you can put in your questions now. You don't have to wait. And I do want to encourage you all to go to, make sure I have it right, the rafaelfilm.org, rafaelfilm.org, and you'll see the Rafael at Home. There's about 21 wonderful films from around the world that are there, and you could stream them and watch them, and it helps the theater, it helps the filmmakers. So please take advantage of that. Tonight we have with us Christopher Felver, director of Ferlinghetti, A Rebirth of Wonder. Hello, Chris.
Good evening. Good evening. You're looking marvelous, Haydn. You're looking marvelous.
As are you. Now you're in, where are you?
I'm in Akron, Ohio here, taking care of a few Midwestern ideas.
Excellent, excellent. I've known Chris for about 30 years, and in preparing for this tonight, I had to read up on him, and you know, it was impressive because Chris has gotten a lot done, and I just want to share a few things about Chris. He's a photographer, extraordinarily good photographer, and has a number of books, collections of his photographs. They include American Jukebox, A Photographic Journey, and that features musicians and singers. The Importance of Being, which has 400 portraits that Chris has done. I'm just going to throw out a few names of people he has taken pictures of: Charles Bukowski, William Burroughs, Noam Chomsky, Clint Eastwood, Elizabeth Taylor, Hunter S. Thompson, Kurt Vonnegut, Dennis Hopper, and the list goes on and on. He's also a prolific filmmaker. Those are just the books on photographs. His films include Cecil Taylor, All the Notes about the great jazz pianist, Donald Judd's Marfa, Texas, Tony Craig in Celebration of Sculpture, John Cage Talks About Cows. Those are the films. And Chris's last book of a few years back of photographs, Tending the Fire, Native Voices and Portraits, which is a collection of Native American poets and writers. How do you get so much done?
Well, I don't sleep. No, I have an active mind, I think, at some time, and I put it to work. But I love meeting people, and basically that's what my work is about, is the extension of my interest in people. And I've never really forgotten the most important thing for me is a populism. And so I'm attracted to people who are open, friendly, and wonderful, like you, Haydn.
But you've gotten people, I mean, to open the doors to you and let you come in and pester them and take photographs. I mean, from Elizabeth Taylor to Hunter S. Thompson to Charles Bukowski to Clint Eastwood. I mean, you're covering a gamut here.
It's a cultural union of everybody who tried to make a statement. And that's who I was always interested in. It was people who were making statements on some cultural issues, whether it be films or poetry or music, or in the last case, the last book, the Native Americans I was always interested in. And that culminated in that book. But those were wonderful pictures of wonderful people giving themselves to me very openly. Mm-hmm. And that was an exciting book for me. You know, exciting time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and some of your projects have taken a few years.
Well, they've taken until today. Yes.
Right. I mean, you've worked this film we're going to talk about in a second on Lawrence Ferlinghetti. You've put in some time on that.
Well, that's joyful time. Anytime you're working with Lawrence or really the poets or the creative people, or this is what spurns me. I love talking and being with people. You know, I'm a little bit Irish. I like to talk a little bit, and most everyone I've met likes to talk too. So I know how to get out of the way, and I'm a pretty good listener. Well, sometimes.
How did you meet Lawrence Ferlinghetti?
Well, actually, I saw him. I came out to California in '66, and I went to the bookstore, and he was there. But I really didn't communicate with him, but I thought, oh, there was Lawrence. But I had the Coney Island of Mind given to me in about that time. And then I came back out in 76 or 77, and there was a May Day performance up and down Grant Street of poetry. And I said, I met Neely Cherkowski right off the bat, and I said, I want to meet the poets. And he introduced me to everybody that night, May 1st, 1978. Mm-hmm. And Bob Coffin was there, Howard Hart, Philip Lamantia, Lawrence. And then about a week later, Ginsberg came in town, and Gregory was always there. So, I mean, it was a very spontaneous kind of thing, but everyone was very open, warm. And if you went to Trieste, you'd see everyone in the morning or in the evening. So it was perfect.
But you got to go, right, the story, you went down to Nicaragua with Ferlinghetti.
Yeah, right off the bat, we, not right off the bat, but then a couple of years later, I met Roberto Vargas, a poet, in a coffee house in the Mission. And he talked romantically about this revolution that was going on in Nicaragua. And I thought, my God, I would love to go down there. And it just so happened Lawrence was going down, and Gary Snyder didn't go, and Lawrence asked me to go. And that was how we did the first book.
Are you saying
7 days in Nicaragua?
Are you saying because Gary Snyder couldn't make it, you took his seat?
Well, he was going to accompany Lawrence to meet Ernesto Cardenal, and they were going to go for the Ruben Dario Poetry Festival. So I accompanied Lawrence to a couple different festivals around the world. But that was the first one. Yeah, it was very exciting, very exciting.
So your work is fairly associated with the beats, and yet in the film about Lawrence doesn't say he's a beat. Help explain this to us, because most of us think of Lawrence as part of the beat group.
Well, I think he was the godfather. He was older than all the beats. And because by publishing them, he made them able, they had some visible books, and creating a publishing company that could spurn them on. And he believed in what he was reading and what he was giving, to society. And he couldn't do what Barney Rosset did in New York because he didn't have that kind of money. And he couldn't, Jack Kerouac came to him, but he couldn't afford Jack Kerouac. Mm-hmm. So when he did the first book on Ginsberg, that was the beginning of the whole beat revolution in a certain way.
So you've given a lot of time to Lawrence. When I look at, the different projects with Lawrence and this long relationship, and, I pulled up Lawrence's wiki entry, and it's really quite striking. If you haven't seen the film, it started streaming on Friday. I hope you did see the film. I hope you will go see the film. Lawrence Ferlinghetti at 101. He's had an amazing life. So many things I didn't know about until I saw Chris's film. And what I was struck by in his, in the wiki entry on all his things, that how educated he is. I mean, he's a man with actually a PhD, though he doesn't carry himself like a PhD kind of guy.
Well, he got a PhD from the Sorbonne. Yeah. But when he came to San Francisco, he fell in with Kenneth Rexroth on that group and the discussion group. And so at that point, he's understood that Rexroth was the pater familias of the city, because Rexroth was on KPFA and he was brilliant on every subject. So I think Lawrence sort of, picked up on that and realized how great San Francisco was. Everybody's just as smart as New York. And he took off with his publishing company from then on. Mm-hmm. And the world's a better place because of it. And it's still going on today, and very powerful books are being published. And I think that's tremendous that it's been able to go like this,
When we see the film, and actually Dan Zastro, the Rafael, pointed this out to me, I totally agree, that free speech is one of the major themes in the film, Rebirth of Wonder. I wonder what you think and what you might think Lawrence might think about how, once again, freedom of speech is a very hot topic.
Well, I think it's essential for Lawrence. That was since he had to go to court to defend it, and he could have lost everything, but over the Howl trial. But Lawrence has this moral courage that continues to this day. And that is what his publishing company is about putting out work that is challenging yet populist in a certain way that is contribution to society that just maybe some of these artists or writers couldn't work at another publishing house, but they could work there very easily.
Maybe it's in the film, but for people who aren't familiar with that, give a quick synopsis of that early 1950s, the Howl by Allen Ginsberg trial for obscenity that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and Lawrence prevailed, was not found guilty. But what a huge thing.
Yeah, you sort of said it there. He put everything on the line. He could have lost everything, but he believed in Allen's work. And because of that, it opened up a lot of doors. It opened up a lot of doors in New York for publishing that Barney did. And,
I do want to, go ahead.
And Burroughs he had problems also with Barney Rossett. Had problems also with publishing, but Lawrence broke the ice, and so because of that, everything opened up. For Henry Miller and those writers.
So to circle back, because I just want to press a little bit more, because really, freedom of speech issues is coming up in a big way with the things going on around the country. Not to be overly political, but certainly there's a lot of freedom, free speech, free expression, free exchange of views. So it appears it's never something that's settled in stone. It keeps getting confronted and reimagined. I wonder, if in the last year or so, when you've seen Lawrence, I don't, if he's had any views about what he sees going on, but maybe hasn't.
Well, I think everyone realizes it's a constant struggle as they take away the women's rights. They try to and keep dumping Obamacare or the 43rd time for that or whatever. I mean, it's a constant battle to keep. Bob Scheer is one of our great journalists, and he's constantly aware of this in his writings and his work when they were at truthdig.com. But Lawrence has been right in the middle of it and been an inspiration for so many people that have been able to write what they want to write and publish what they want to write. And that is his moral conviction and his courage.
So I want to jump around since we don't have all that much time. So I'm encouraging anyone. I mean, Lawrence's story is big, covers a lot of chapters, and really, I hope wonderful people in it. Who are some of the people in the film again? I mean, the who's who? Everybody.
Billy Collins. Everybody was more than happy to be in it. But
how much do you pay people to be in it?
Well, I hope that I get offered a drink. I hope it's the opposite way around.
I got to tell you, if you're a filmmaker out there, and I know you're out there because there's so many filmmakers, Chris is one of the original DIY, do-it-yourself guys. I've never seen him needing big crews, demanding all kinds of, no limos, I know that, and money and stuff. So you've been do-it-yourself way back, and you get the work done.
I want to tell you a little story. Quickly, I have no releases from anyone. And I've never had a release. I hope this doesn't get to bother anyone. But if you take a gorgeous picture and you involve someone in a gorgeous project, I've never had anyone turn back on me and try to make it a big deal. So yeah, I do most of these projects by myself, not editing, but I shoot them by myself. And so I just come there like a friend and try to engage and not stay too long. Sometimes forever,
You've picked some subjects who are known to have a little bit of an edge to them. I've seen Cecil Taylor perform. If you haven't seen him, in one of the great greatest jazz pianist of all times, but a prickly character. And Chris has a very intimate film with him. He's like in his house, he's in the cabs with him. I mean, you do seem to be able to get through to these people who have a lot of people trying to get their time and attention and willing to spend time with you.
Well, David Amram always told me that the whole idea is to be a professional at hangoutology. And I've sort of succeeded in that, I think. I mean, but I like hanging out. To me, it's a personal decision. If someone wants you to come, you come and do the best you can quickly. And then that may lead to a whole afternoon or a lifetime. But I just I've always liked the tight close-up. Mm-hmm. And that's how I film. And everyone's directly in the camera, and so they're directly involved. And, so we have sort of an exchange of ideas, and it's not just them looking off in the distance trying to figure out what to say. It's like in this situation. You're asking me a question straight on. I'm trying to answer it as best I can, and I think that's what all of my participants do, whether it's film or photography.
So I saw, like a dozen portraits at your website, and if you want to see some of Chris's photos, chrisfelver.com, and there is something distinguishing about them, though it's a little bit elusive about what it is. There is sort of almost like a relaxed nature that is brought out from they're not overly lit, overly grand, big this. So how would you describe a Chris Felver portrait if you were not yourself?
Seriously, I had this exhibition down in Hollywood, and this guy came in on Saturday afternoon. He said, we've been talking about this. I said, we? Who's that? Anyway, he said, we can't figure out how you light these things. I didn't tell him, but I'll tell you, I don't light them. It's natural light all the time. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't traipse around. I remember people in New York, when I was living in New York, this gal worked for New York Magazine, and she'd get about, I think, $80 for a portrait. Well, she'd lug her lights up there with the cab and all, and she'd spend $75 just getting the picture. And I thought, well, that's just ridiculous. So I do it in a little different way. The films are probably the same sort of way, very minimally lit, if lit at all. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep it simple. That's just the way I look at it.
In all your years with Lawrence Ferlinghetti, he's 101. He's been in very good health. He's a prolific painter. We all want to live a long, healthy life. Did you pick up any longevity secrets from hanging out?
I sure did.
Yes.
He and Nancy Peters,
okay,
who ran City Lights with Lawrence forever, and the editor, they would go to the Y every day and work out. And I think that's what did it for him. I really mean that. I mean, he swam every day almost. He worked out. He has a rowing machine in his house. I mean, it's, he's a very fit young man. And I think that's done him a whole lot of good for a long time, as opposed to other debaucherous people that we know.
Right. So we have a few more minutes, and then I'm going to look at the questions. But I want to ask you, what are you working on now?
Well, I just finished a film on this British sculptor, Tony Craig. Sir Anthony Craig, he just got knighted. And I've been working on that for a few years, actually, in Wuppertal, where his studio was, and then a couple other places. But Tony's such an interesting character that I felt I had to keep him up to date because his sculpture's gotten so monumental, shall we say. And I'm actually working on finishing a film now on golf that I've been working on for 20 years because I had an interest in golf when I was young, very deep interest, and I tried to explain it. So I've been lucky.
You played a lot of golf when you were young. Were you good?
Yeah, well, I was on the golf team at the University of Miami when it was still Suntan U, and we made a few trips around the country. Yeah.
So being a filmmaker, photographer was sort of like, if you're not going to be in the PGA,
they didn't have a minor league. When I grew up, they didn't have a minor league in the golf thing, or all my pals would have gone onto that. it was a one-time shot, you know, and
So is this film, the golf film, a little more autobiographical?
I narrated, which I don't do in any of my films.
Who's in? Who's in it that we know?
I got some great writers. Herbert Warren Wind, one of the great sports writers, Jack Whitaker, Jim Nance, Al Barco, Johnny Miller, a lot of really interesting people. Dennis Hopper again, Billy Collins. You know, a lot of people are involved in the film. Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer at the Masters at 18. I happened to go there with my friend whose father had won the Masters, and that was Arnie's last year there at the Masters. So, and I went to Scotland, and so it's taken a while to do it. I've been working on it for about 20 years, but a friend of mine qualified for the tour, and we used to play golf together in tournaments and things. I thought, well, this is a good time to start it. And it took a while to interview everyone and getting around, you know.
You know, I don't play golf, but it's surprising to me sometimes to see how many people from so many different walks of life and careers and stuff have a deep love and attraction to golf. What would you tell us non-players the thing that draws you?
Well, Michael Murphy is the main character in this film. He wrote Golf of the Kingdom. You know, yeah. And it's an environmental ecstasy. It's walking through a beautiful garden every day. And what is wrong with that? Now, of course, in Scotland, they walk through the garden every day, no matter what course there are no electric cars. And here they sort of drive through it. But it's the ecstasy of being out in nature and having this wonderful cruise, you know, so to speak. And it doesn't make a difference how you play, actually. It's just being there. So that's why everybody has a good time when they go to the golf course and can't wait to return.
What's the title?
The Spirit of Golf.
The Spirit of Golf.
Okay. Yeah, and everyone expounds on that concept.
You know, it's time, if you're out there and you want to send in a question, go to the bottom of your screen and there's a tab, Q&A, and write something up. Somebody wrote in, what did Lawrence think of the film?
Well, he told me to stop working on it after it was done. I suggested to him we might do a little addendum. He said, you've got to stop now and get on another job. Lawrence is a very rational person, you know. And so he's beautiful. But, he loves the film. I mean, there hasn't been another film on him.
Yeah.
So, you know, but he was always a wonderful co-creator, shall we say?
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm sure, and you know, his family's in it, and Lorenzo is in there, and so is his daughter. So I did a film when I first met you, these many years.
Yeah.
I was working on another film on Lawrence. It was just a day in the life, and this is more from his peers' point of view, and himself being involved there. And you know, this has got his World War II credentials and things like that. And so it's a little deeper, but A Day in the Life is the first film was the first film was very interesting too.
Okay.
It was an hour long, but
I'm hoping some people will write a few questions now. Oh, and there's one as I speak. Somebody wants to know if you've ever worked with or crossed paths with the late Les Blank.
First guy I photographed when I came to LA, to San Francisco. I went right over there because Fitzcarraldo and the Burden of Dreams was just the all-time documentary to me. So Les was great. He was drinking beer then. And I immediately went over there because Les Blank was the documentary filmmaker in the San Francisco area. Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, I was working down in LA for a while for, you know, a couple companies and making these adverts and short films and things. But I came up to San Francisco to do something on the beats. I knew that because I'd done a film in film school in London College of Printing the last time I saw Neil. and that was a short film, 30 minutes, but I wrote that. And so I was always interested in the beats, and Les was sort of tangentially part of that era and part of that group. So I was happy to meet him. He was a fantastic guy, you know. I mean, what a beautiful film, right? The Burden of Dreams is, yeah, that's real filmmaking.
I was surprised when I was looking at your bio to see that you did what I guess, because I haven't seen it, but it appears to be like an environmental film, California Clay in the Rockies, 1983. So is that about the clay of the California, how we have to preserve it or protect it?
No, it's really a tribute to Pete Volkas and the people surrounding him, like Bob Arneson and Viola Fry and Richard Shaw and Phil Cornelius and Paul Soldner. It was a clay conference up in California. So I guess you could say it's environmental because all clay people are mud people and they're environmentalists, you know.
I was playing with you a little bit because I looked it up, and it's about these great ceramic artists. So it is in the theme. You haven't really gone off brand, as they would say today, except the golf film feels a little, it's not music, it's not art, it's, you know, but
we made music out of the golf film. I mean, by what is being said there, it's a philosophical perusal of what golf is really about. I don't want to change the subject from where we were with Pete Volkas, the great Pete Volkas, who single-handedly changed the course of the clay world. But you know.
I think we should actually. I'm drifting away from Lawrence, which we should stay on. As someone asked the question, to your knowledge, is Lawrence still writing? He's
had help writing. He's not writing anymore, but he's thinking, and he's had a young man assist him. And that was his book, Little Boy, came out just, maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago. And he's still thinking, but he's not writing as much. But he did the Little Boy is his latest work. It's just tremendous, you know. It's he was very happy to have that.
Was he painting up until his 90s?
Oh, he's painting up until his late 90s, like 99. Rena Branstein is still representing his work, and as was George Krevsky. And Lawrence he'll live forever, you know. I mean, all his work, but he always wanted to be a painter, you know, and he always thought that would be his real. He downplays his poetry, you know. He calls poetry poultry. So
I saw that when he was getting his master's, I believe, or maybe it was the PhD, he did one on Turner, the British landscape painter, was one of his doctoral pieces. So he had a long-standing love for the great masters in painting, and
he has pieces that he did over in Paris in '46. One sort of surreal inverted piece that's really beautiful. I think he's always been very aware of everything. Mm-hmm. Lawrence is a tremendous intellect. That's a real big thinker.
Yeah.
In our friend, and so it encompasses all of the written word, mm-hmm. the art, and culture in general. In music also. I mean,
we have a question to that about the future of City Lights, best of your knowledge.
City Lights is now a foundation. They were having a problem at the beginning of this little COVID-19 deal. They ran out and did a fund me, and within about 3 days got enough money for absolutely to go on for a long time. And I think that's tremendous. There was such support for City Lights, and it came in droves. And I'm really happy to report that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Great news.
Oh, yeah. And it happened fast, like 3 or 4 days, and it was over with. It was that fantastic. And so they're back open. Now you can go there and get any book you'd like. And so fortunately, it'll be City Lights will run forever. I mean, it's and what a publishing house. I mean, their latest publications are really up to date, as we say, up to date in San Francisco.
Yeah. Tell us about someone, if you don't want to share their name, but it'd be nice to hear their name. Somebody, a well-known person who you wanted to take their photograph, you got to take their photograph, but it wasn't easy. Who made it hard for you? Or didn't give you much time?
Oh, well, no one gives you that much time, but really? I don't know.
Clint Eastwood.
He was great. No, I had a friend introduce me to him, and then all of a sudden I ended up, a lot of the photographs from the music book were made because Clint made the introduction. I had an open pass for 2 years down at the Monterey Jazz Fest because of Clint. And no, Clint was great. Let's see, I really, I haven't had any problems really. There are a couple that slipped away, like Tennessee Williams. I let him go because I didn't want to force the issue that moment. And I spent, and Hunter Thompson was always great,
How much time do you need to have a chance at a portrait that you could be happy with? What's the minimum time you need?
1 minute.
1 minute.
I know that sounds impossible because Annie needs a day or something, but if someone has their look, they have their look. If they lay it on you, you don't have to beat them to death with the camera.
So you mean people who are used to being photographed have a look that they can deliver?
No, I don't know. It's when I was in Europe and I was photographing, I'd take 3 pictures. That was it. 3 pictures and I was out of there. I didn't want to be known as the American photographer who, overstayed their welcome. So, I mean, I used to think I could do it in 3 pictures. So, I mean, sounds a little mad, but those are my best pictures. They were some of my absolute best pictures. And so, I try to make people feel good, look good, and get out of their way,
You took a nice picture of me, and what I wasn't ready for was how much you talk to kind of make, like to direct, but I think also to throw the person out of some sort of rigid, thinking too much. You do a whole kind of mind game on, right? I mean, maybe not with the pros, but with us regular people.
Everybody, you have to talk a little bit. They want to know what you're thinking, and so I give it to them. It's like Cecil said, if they want to know, I'll give it to them. So of course, you have to have a little pizzazz. It's a razzmatazz thing. You just, I don't take it seriously. To me, it's fun. It has to be fun on some level. You can't go in there with a troupe and lighting people. And then, we used to have these, I never had any, but the little pictures that, no, take the picture and take your chances.
Okay. Elizabeth Taylor.
Nice. She happened to be over at the American Academy, and I was a visiting artist there. I guess in '88, she was with Zeffirelli making Young Toscanini. And I said, well, I'm the historian. It was Sine Cite to the max. They'd taken over. Jim Melchert was the director there. And I think that's sort of part of the reason I got in there. But anyway, thank you, Jim. But I said, well, I have to take a picture for the Academy. So I got in there, and it was very interesting. That was a fast picture. I walked in, I thought I was going to have this wonderful conversation with her because I'd met her once before, like a couple of days before. I set it up and I'll be back. And so I came down from Torino that day, and it rained and I got in there. And she said, oh, hi, here, you stand there and I'll stand here. And that was it. It happened that fast. But then Zeffirelli was there. So I got a picture of Zeffirelli. He was cool. He gave me a couple more seconds, but I was behind the scenes with Elizabeth Taylor. She was a tiny little gal with these beautiful eyes,
Yeah.
And she was all dressed for the part that day. But they'd taken over Jim Melchert's his villa, and for Young Toscanini, which never really got released as a film. It got released on television on the BBC. But
so we got a question in, and most people wouldn't know this, but Lawrence Ferlinghetti, his father died before he was born, and he was separated from his mother after his birth. And the question was that given this pretty rough early start in life, did it help build the character, the determination, the resilience to be as fruitful as he's been? Do you think there's a connection to his early life challenges, including the Second World War, you could say?
Well, I think the Second World War was the challenge. You know, he was not only in the Atlantic on D-Day, he was in the Pacific and went to the nuclear site.
He went to Hiroshima.
Yeah. So he was a little bit taken with, you know, the war effort and all that bit. But the atomic bomb was the most important thing to him. It really, he didn't believe in it at all. And it made him an instant pacifist. And he says that in the film. He just, that was aberrant to his whole physical makeup and thought. So when he came back, he went to New York and took journalism at Columbia, and then went over to see George Whitman. I mean, the Lawrence Ferlinghetti story can't be told without having George Whitman of Shakespeare and Company, his best friend, who was also there on his oral presentation to get his PhD. And then George started his bookstore, Shakespeare and Company, about the same time. He started it first, a little before Lawrence, and they were going to be working with each other forever. So they thought that each one they'd work at each other's bookstore, take over each other's bookstore. So George would come to San Francisco and Lawrence would take over at Shakespeare and Company. That didn't happen, but they were lifelong friends and
so Chris, we got a suggestion for a new assignment for you.
Oh, great.
Which is to go out and cover some of the people on the front lines in the hospitals working to try to help get us through this and that. So kind of social realism kind of thing, huh?
Well, it's been done very well. I mean, if you see the Times, they've had wonderful. I mean, that one picture of Central Park where they had set up those hospital beds. Wow, just an unbelievable picture. And there are many photographers who do that kind of work. That's just not my shtick. I was in the Army, I was in the Medical Corps, I was in a hospital, an amputee hospital, Fitzsimmons General Hospital, and I can't do that. It hurts me too much, and I see it, and makes me ill. I mean, that makes me ill, just the suffering of mankind. I'm trying to show the joy of our existence, not show, the hardship as much. I mean, that could be like I'm a fair weather person, but it's not that I don't feel it, but I'm not going to take that assignment. And I really feel that, thank you for the suggestion. I feel honored that you think I should do something. I agree with that.
Well, it could have. It doesn't say who's sending this, but my wife's the nurse, and I'm thinking is that her? She said he did say.
Well, now just a second. I'll be glad to take a picture. You know that. That's fine. No problem.
Well, I'm looking at the clock. We're gonna kind of get down to it. I'm waiting for some more questions. So if you're out there and a film like Ferlinghetti, Rebirth of Wonder, and these other wonderful films at the Rafael at Home, please go to the website and see what is up. There's new films every couple of weeks. And the website address, again, is Rafael, R-A-F-A-E-L, film.org. This streaming is available throughout the country. This interview will be up at some point and you could see it. But helping the theater is also helping the filmmakers. So thank you for, I don't know. Oh, I have one more question. Hold on, people. Someone wants to know, does Lawrence's paintings show up in the film?
Oh, of course. Of course. He had a show at Berkeley. Mm-hmm. That's covered there, and initially he yeah, he has a couple appearances with his films of his painting, of course.
Who are the painters, not like Turner in the classics, but of the last 50 years, who are painters that we might have know about that he liked or admired?
Well, he likes the light painters. He likes people that show some essence of where we sit. You know, I'm sure that probably Matisse is a friend of his. It's funny, I took him to Die Bruck Museum in Berlin, and he didn't like any of them. But I think there's something about that there's way back. It went way back to the war years, I think, or something. It was interesting, though. I was in Berlin with him, and he wasn't that happy with the whole setup in Berlin. And this was after the wall came down.
Right, but this like Ansel Kiefer and those very kind of gloomy.
It's not. It's about light. It's about light.
For him.
Yes. Yeah. He's. But yes, of course, we have that in the film.
Does he have a practice? I mean, I've never heard him really affiliated with like Buddhism or Christianity. Is there a sort of a what can we call it? You know, that he turns to, or a tradition that he's feels himself most linked to?
I think he's most linked to being an intellectual. And I don't know exactly how that builds, but he's the erudition of his knowledge about Greek philosophy, Italian philosophy, the Romantics. I mean, he's a very learned guy, and it's very interesting. My dad was somewhat like Lawrence, and so I think that's sort of I picked up on that. And it's not tied to any religious belief, but there's an inner stoicism that he's very, very capable of handling any situation with humor and aplomb. We've traveled a few times to Europe. There's never been a dull moment for 1 second that we didn't have fun because of his wordplay. He looks at things and he sees it in a very unique way, but it's always a way that is a joyful way. It's not negative. I mean, even when we were down with the Sandinistas and the guns were everywhere, and Ernesto would come by at 10 in the morning and we'd go out on these trails with these the soldiers and things, we sort of looked at it with in a joyful attitude. You know, we were hoping at that point that the revolution down there would work before Danny Ortega bought all those shades in New York. That was the beginning of a new problem. Yeah.
Once again, I want to encourage people. We're winding down. I see another question, but their Rebirth of Wonder is the title of the film. And these are times, I mean, I feel it, I'm sure anybody watching this feels it, that a little rebirth of wonder inside is a great thing. And this film shows a man whose life spans a lot and has seen a lot. And as Chris has been saying, is able to keep his eye on the prize of what life can be, and what to prioritize. So it's a very inspiring film for times like these. So please, I hope you will stream it. Somebody asking about his eyesight, will he be able to paint again? He's 101, huh? So stuff starts happening.
Stuff starts happening, but what's really bothering him is that the baseball's not being on and the football's not being on, so he can't hear it or see it or anything. So that's he's a little sedentary now, but it would be good if he had more entertainment. Let's just say that. And he's not painting much, but he's thinking a lot. So he's still very much with it. So good. I'm happy to report.
Excellent. Well, if any last questions out there, I think Chris, what else should we know about you?
Well, that I hope to get back to California and see Lawrence soon. I'm in Ohio, and I can't,
You'd be quarantined, man.
Well, yeah, but Lawrence is being taken care of. His son Lorenzo's there doing a marvelous job of cooking and housekeeping and things like that. So the most important question is, you know, what Lawrence has given us, and through his generosity of spirit and vision, our world is a better place. And I think not just the film knows that, but I think everyone who believes in the written word. You know, Michael McClure said in the film, there hasn't been a guy quite like Lawrence in literature. And, you know, Baraka, Mary Baraka calls him just an old ass anarchist. But that vision is what has propelled all of us to think different thoughts, and what he's given us literarily by publishing his work and others is a beautiful gift to humanity that'll be forever. And that's what we have to think about Lawrence Ferlinghetti, is his generosity of spirit and what he's given our culture.
Yeah. Well, they didn't tell us how long to go.
We can go forever, Haydn. Let's talk about Robert Bly, your great film.
No, that wouldn't be right. That'll be up next week, people. Let me make a plug for Robert Bly, 1,000 Years of Joy. A similar character. He's only 93. So there's something about poetry. Snyder is 90. Is Gerald Stern still with us? He's like 96. Some of this, maybe reading poetry, you know, can be good for you.
I think poetry is very good for you. It's like medicine.
That is really true.
I've always loved the line. Yeah, and especially the people you've gone after with like Rumi and Stafford, and you've made wonderful contributions in the poetic scene, Mr. Reiss, yourself, and I want to compliment you for that.
Somebody just posted, poetry keeps the mind healthy. All I would say is, you know, some poetry really does. Some poetry, for me, not so much. So isn't it a bit like music? People say, do you like music? Everybody goes, I love music. And I say, do you love all music? Usually people have, you know, what they gravitate to. So I always say to people, just find one or two poets that you like. That's all you need. You don't have to love them all.
Well, if you're looking to figure out which poets those are, I suggest that in Berkeley, we have a literary magazine called Poetry Flash, and Joyce Jenkins has been there for as long as I've been here, holding the fort down, and she has a wonderful website, poetryflash.com.org, I think, that will give you all the readings around town. And we have a beautiful, Harold Norris once said, we have more poets in San Francisco than we have people. So I always thought that was terrific. But the point is that we have a lot of poets with a lot of ideas from all corners, shapes, sizes. And that's what San Francisco has really given all of us, is a voice. And that's a lot due to Lawrence Ferlinghetti in a certain way. You know? People flocked here because of the openness and the generosity of the city. So.
Somebody asking that Lawrence likes the work of Frank Koci, K-O-C-I, local artist, outside of art with shades of German expressionism. We were asking about or I asked about what artists, I don't know that fellow, Frank Koci. Somebody else writes, when I was younger, I met Lawrence, who showed me a book his son illustrated, and he wrote the text. Does it exist out there?
If the book was published, it exists.
But could they find a publisher?
Oh.
That's a joke.
Could they find a publisher? Let me think about that a second.
That is a publisher. Done.
Perfect.
You know, it's really true. Dan didn't tell us how long we go. I think there's going to be like that hook coming, you know, pulling you off and stuff. Do you have a book of poetry there of Lawrence's? Come on.
I really don't. No, I really don't.
Do you know any? Do you know some lines off the top of your head?
No, that's really pressing me, isn't it?
I'm sorry.
I mean, really, you must have a lot of them yourself, you know?
No. I'm looking for the big finishing number for us.
Ah, well, I see what you mean. Well, there's no question about it. Let me think about that. Well, of course, what we'd have is the best. Well, Lawrence has this one thing, but I have to paraphrase it, but it's in the film, that a cup of coffee and a wonderful friend is all you need to have a wonderful day.
Say that again.
A wonderful cup of coffee and a wonderful friend is all you need to have a wonderful day.
That's beautiful. And
well,
I just
sort of paraphrase to what Lawrence would say, but
I just got a message that our time is indeed up. So I want to let's all thank Chris Felver for giving us this incredibly good film and moving, inspirational film. I hope you will support Rafael at home and visit the site and see the other films. And then a little flurry of questions, but, okay. Oh man, now they're coming in. Well, firstly.
Keep going, you got 6 more minutes.
Okay, so I've been told that I can mention that my film, Robert Bly, 1,000 Years of Joy, which like Chris's it's a portrait of Robert Bly, who's also had a very adventurous life and covered a lot of territory. That'll start streaming a week from on Friday, and there'll also be a question Q&A, and I'll be sitting where Chris is sitting, and our dear friend Tano Maida will do that interview. Like I say, go to the Rafael at home. They got a lot of wonderful things coming up. Thank you, Kim Ray. Awesome interview. Okay, got that from Yvonne. How do you think poetry informed Lawrence's art and vice versa, being both a poet as well as a filmmaker myself? So poetry informed his art and how art informed his poetry. I guess the painting, poetry, back and forth.
Well, I think just getting a PhD in Paris was, his PhD oral thesis was the city poet in the city. So if you're in the city, you come across music, art, and literature. So I think that's what he and George were into in the 40s when Lawrence was there getting his PhD. So I think they're inseparable. And Lawrence he doesn't forget anything. So it's all those paintings. Imagine having access to the Louvre for a couple years. No one in their right mind wouldn't come away with something deep.
Well, as we are still in our right mind, we're going to bring this to a close. I want to thank Chris. I want to thank Dan and Yvonne. And
yeah, me too. Thank you very much.
We're going to say good night. Good night.